Welcome to Murder with the Misses. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy. And today we're going to tell you about the Bystander Effect.
Before we get started, make sure you guys go on to Spotify and like us on there, subscribe. YouTube. Go check us out on Google Play, Apple Play.
Podbean.
Or I guess it's Apple Podcast, my bad. And then make sure you guys go to Facebook and follow us and share and tell all your friends about it.
Yes, please do. So today we're going to talk about the bystander effect. Ever heard of it? It's a social, psychological theory that says an individual is less likely to offer help to a victim in the presence of other people. When it's one person, that person will feel the responsibility. But in a group setting, that responsibility weakens. It's a concept that an individual in a group setting is more likely to believe someone else will do something and that it's not their place. Many believe the opposite of that if there are more people around, that you are more willing to help, whether it be because you feel safety in numbers or just an unwillingness to look like an insensitive asshole. And this has changed over the years, according to some studies. Or has it? These are stories that may be hard to hear, so please proceed with caution if you have triggers for sexual assault. I started out just looking into the story that I knew about already, the one that first coined the phrase bystander effect. This is the story of Kitty Genovese. Most have heard this name. Catherine Susan Kitty Genovese was a very good student in her younger years. She was voted class cut-up her senior year. Same here. Well, I was class clown, but it's the same thing. She was funny, witty, and to be in her clique meant that you were the cool kid back then. She was raised in Brooklyn, but after she graduated from school in 1953, her mom witnessed a murder in the streets, so she moved the family to Connecticut. Everyone but Kitty. She stayed in New York City. She was briefly married to a man named Rocco. She was a secretary at an insurance company during the day, but at night she was a bartender at Ev's 11th Hour, which is a bar in Queens. Customers said that she was the queen of this bar, but also just like one of the guys. And this bar opened at 8 in the morning, and there was usually people already waiting to get in. She used to take bets from the customers and give them to the bookie, so she did get arrested for that once. She met her girlfriend, Mary Ann, in 1963. They found an apartment on the second floor of the Kew Gardens and moved in together. Her family didn't know that she was gay, and everyone thought that Mary Ann was just her roommate that would come with Kitty on the weekends to visit the family. Mary Ann said that Kitty was conflicted about her sexuality. On March 13th, 1964, 28-year-old Kitty came home from work at around 3 a.m. Now, there were shops on the street, and the apartments were above them, so the entrance to the apartments was at the back of the building. She was walking in front of the shops at the front of the building when a man ran up behind her and stabbed her in the back. Kitty screamed, and lights came on in some of the apartment units. A man on the 7th floor opened his window and saw the man and Kitty struggling, so he yelled down for him to leave the girl alone. The attacker left, and the man closed his window.
Kitty made her way around the corner of the building and was trying to get to the entrance of the apartments.
Yeah, she was trying to make her way around, but it was slow going because she had been stabbed. And the attacker had been sitting in his car watching the building while this was going on, watching the lights in the apartments go back out. He heard no sirens, saw no people come outside. He had waited for about 10 minutes, so he decided to go looking for Kitty again. She had managed to make her way into the vestibule of the apartment building, but collapsed at the bottom of the stairs. And this is where he found her and attacked her again. At the top of the stairs, one of the apartment doors opened, and Carl Ross, who was very drunk at the time, looked out and saw the man stabbing Kitty. He closed his door. Kitty was stabbed, raped, and robbed in that vestibule. Kitty's friend Sophie came running down the stairs to Kitty, but the man had fled. Carl Ross, during this time, had called a friend who told him not to get involved. He called another friend who lived in the building, and they told him to come over. So he had actually climbed out of his window and made his way over to their apartment, where they eventually called 911. Help arrived in about 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes, and Kitty was rushed to the hospital. She died en route, and she had been stabbed 13 times and had numerous defensive wounds.
5 days later, the man was caught stealing a TV out of a house and was arrested. This would be Kitty's attacker.
Yeah. So Winston Mosley confessed to killing Kitty and also another crime. Just 2 weeks before Kitty's attack, Winston had shot a woman in her front yard while her family slept. Once inside the house, he raped her, and since she was still breathing, he set the house on fire. He told police that when he left Kitty in the vestibule, he pulled behind a car at a stoplight that wouldn't move. He went up to the car and had to wake the driver up to get him to move. Police asked, "Why didn't you kill him?" And Winston said, "I did not feel that I wanted to kill that man in particular." Now, Winston would die in prison in 2016 at 81 years old. But the reason this case was so widely known was the media. The New York Times headline was 37 who saw murder didn't call police. That was an attention getter for sure. And the article said, for more than half an hour, 38 respectable law-abiding citizens in Queens watched a killer stalk and stab a woman. Now, many, many years later, it would come out that there were people who called police. And there were 2 eyewitnesses and 6 ear witnesses that day. But 38 people did not watch this happen. 2 things happened in 1968 because of Kitty's murder. The concept of the bystander effect came to be, which has gone on to influence Good Samaritan laws around the country. These laws are the ones that protect you from being liable for things like breaking a car window to rescue a dog from the heat and bigger things, but they vary by state. But that's the one that comes to mind first. Like, it allows you to break the law if it's in the benefit.
Yeah, it's basically so that you fucking do something.
Do something about it.
Yeah. If you see something bad going on, fucking try to help.
Yes.
Just try to fucking help.
Yes. And you might remember this was actually at the end of Seinfeld. I don't know if you ever watched that show back in the 90s, but they all got arrested at the end of the show because they watched a man get robbed and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, the second thing that the adoption of the nationwide emergency line, which is, now is 911.
Yeah. So back then you had to call the police department. So you'd have to call the operator, and then the operator would get you the number to the police or connect you to fire, ambulance, blah, blah, blah. So because of Kitty's case, we now have 911. So you call one number and get what you need.
Yeah, but man, just to open your door up and look down and see somebody being stabbed, just shut your door.
Just go on about your business, yeah.
And everything. And then the guy's like, oh, come over next door, crawl out the window and scale a building.
Yes, to keep from having to go out there where somebody's being murdered.
So you don't have to go out your front door.
Yeah.
Bitch move.
Yes, yes. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's going to be frustrating, I promise you. And I mentioned earlier that I did start with her case and came across multiple that reference the bystander effect. So we're going to go into some of those too. Another one of those was October 24th of 2009. Now at around 9:30 p.m., Jane Doe, because I refuse to use her name, Jane Doe, a 95-pound, 16-year-old girl, was at a homecoming dance at Richmond High School in California. The dance ended, and Jane was invited to hang out with some men who were getting drunk in the courtyard on campus. These men ranged in age from 15 to their late 40s. Why a 40-year-old man is getting drunk with teenagers at a high school dance? Couldn't tell you. She had a headache, but she went over to check out things anyway. She remembers them being nice to her, even laying a jacket or sweater on a concrete bench so that she could sit down without getting her dress dirty. One of the men propositioned her for sex, which she declined. She decided that was her cue to go ahead and leave. She remembers standing up to go call her dad to come and pick her up because she had church the next morning. And then she remembers falling, but she doesn't know why. She blacked out. She remembers waking up briefly, and she was holding onto her necklaces because it felt like someone was trying to pull them off of her. She felt a kick to her stomach and blacked out again. What was happening to her is for 2.5 hours, she was beaten and raped. Sometimes they would use a foreign object to do it. They poured alcohol down her throat. They put cigarettes out on her back. One witness said they were kicking her in the head and they were beating her up, robbing her, and ripping her clothes off. It's something you can't get out of your mind. I saw people like dehumanizing her. I saw some pretty crazy stuff. She was pretty quiet. I thought that she was dead for a minute. but then I saw her moving around. I felt like I could have done something, but I don't feel like I have any responsibility for anything that happened.
And how many men are there?
Report said 24, so 24.
24 men?
Yes.
Was
at this courtyard while this was happening.
And none of them stepped up?
Not one of them. Not one of them. And remember, their age ranges are from 15 to late 40s.
And they're like this, they feel like they have
no responsibility for anything that happened.
No, you had complete responsibility because you could have done something.
So the way that was worded, that quote, he says like a lot. And so I think it might have been one of the younger kids that had said that quote, because he says they were like dehumanizing her. So I think it was a younger kid that actually said that.
It's kind of weird to hear that a younger kid didn't try to help, because most young kids, they want to be the superhero.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this right now. That 15-year-old was the one who invited her into the courtyard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, there was reports that there was 24 men, but not all of them assaulted her. It's believed that parts of this were filmed on phones, but police were not able to obtain the recording. Another woman's boyfriend heard about what was going on and told her. She called the police. That's the person that called the police, somebody that wasn't even there. Jane was found and airlifted to the hospital in critical condition. 7 men were arrested. One was eventually released for lack of evidence. He came out saying he was just there, and he offered her his shirt, but he didn't call the cops because he was worried about retaliation for being a snitch. So the remaining people they had in jail ranged in age from 15 to 21, but they later arrested a 43-year-old. The 4 main attackers got prison time. The lowest sentence I saw on them was 27 years, and they go up to life. A couple of them did take a plea deal and only got a couple of years, but I don't think that they actually had a hand in it. They got that for just basically being there. And the charges were dismissed against the kid that was 15 at the time. One thing I like to see is that the minimum of the main attackers is 27 years. There's so many times we do these cases where they don't get shit. So I was kind of happy to see that they actually got some actual time.
Yeah.
Finally. Now, Jane was in the hospital for 4 days. Her blood alcohol level was nearly fatal at 0.35%. She had never drunk alcohol before and says she didn't voluntarily drink that night like some of the other men were saying. She had head trauma, bone fractures, hypothermia, and the burns from the cigarettes. She was swollen, bruised, and scraped up. She still to this day has migraines, has trouble learning new things, and her right shoulder and hips regularly pop out of socket. She was awarded $4 million in a civil suit against the school district since they had security for the dance that night, but she was still able to be gang raped for 2.5 hours without security noticing that people were still on campus.
News reports say that there was around 12 people who actually sexually assaulted her that night, and they are still trying to match up their DNA.
Yeah, so they have DNA, but it hasn't been matched to anybody yet, so they don't know who exactly it belongs to, and the others are not talking.
So did they get DNA from all 24 of these motherfuckers?
Well, there was only 12 who actually sexually assaulted her.
There's 24, 24 fucking men there.
Yeah, but I guess the other 12 didn't have significant enough DNA, which I would think you could get.
I would have got DNA from every freaking one of them.
Well, they can't find them. They weren't there when they found her, so they don't know. All they can go off of is what these kids are saying. Yeah, because and her, whatever she could say before she passed out. Because remember, she was blacked out for most of this. She had no idea what was going on, luckily. I know that sounds sick, but yeah. Now, you would think, okay, you've got one from the 60s and you've got one from 2009, but these days, it doesn't happen like that, right? Well, a couple of years later, on Memorial Day, 2011, in Alameda, California, police got a call from a mother who said that her 53-year-old son, Raymond Zach, wanted to kill himself and had walked out into the water at Crown Beach. Alameda police, firefighters, and many, many civilians stood on the beach, seeing just this man's head above the water about 150 yards out. They said the water was between 50 and 60 degrees that day. No one was going into the water. No one was trying to help. The police lieutenant later said, "We are not trained to go into the water. Obviously, the type of gear that we have on, we don't have the type of equipment that you could use to go into the water." The fire department said budget constraints are preventing it from recertifying its firefighters in land-based water rescues. Without it, the city would be open to liability. The fire chief later said, quote, "Well, if I was off duty, I would know what I would do. But I think you're asking me my on-duty response. And I would have to say within our policies and procedures, because that's what's required by our department to do."
Your job is to serve and protect.
Protect. But they're saying because he was in the water, they're not allowed to go into the water by their policies.
He's not in foreign waters.
It doesn't matter. They said that was the rule.
Good Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, all of these people are just looking at this man in the water. Mm-hmm. Firefighters called the United States Coast Guard. Well, at least they called the fucking Coast Guard.
They did, yes.
To come to the scene right after they got there.
Right.
So they did call them right. So it was just after they got. No, they should have called them on the way.
They said they called them right after they got there.
But their boats were 40 minutes away. Of course they was. That's what I'm saying. They should have. That Coast Guard should have been part of it
from the get-go. As soon as they said water, he's out in the water.
I mean, imagine this was a beach, right?
It is. Yes, so Crown Beach.
Most California, they have lifeguards.
Lifeguards, beach patrols.
Beach patrols. Where were they?
No clue. No clue.
I mean.
And I'm talking there's people who were on the beach that day that were just standing around watching. There's people who live along this beach that were watching out of their windows of their house. There was so many people watching this go down.
Man.
Yeah. But they said that the Coast Guard was out on another rescue and they had to finish that rescue, refuel, and then come. That's why they said it would be a minimum of 40 minutes for them to get there. I don't know why they only have one boat for a whole. I mean, California has a lot of coastline.
Yeah, but I mean, they also have helicopters.
Yes.
That they drop.
That's what they were bringing.
That's what I'm saying. But they're talking about the boat would be 40 minutes away.
Well, not the boat, the helicopter.
The helicopter's 40 minutes away?
Yes, because it was on another rescue. They didn't say anything about the boat. Weird. I know. So after an hour, Raymond was suffering from hypothermia, and he eventually collapsed. Even then, none of the authorities on scene would go into the water to get him. His body gradually drifted towards the shore. Finally, a woman in her 20s, who was just a civilian, volunteered to bring the body to land so that they could actually touch him at about 12:27 p.m. He would be pronounced dead at the hospital at 12:59. The courts found the city of Alameda not liable for letting him die. Since they didn't try to save him, they didn't assume any duty of care, therefore did not undertake affirmative acts that increased risk of harm. The day after the drowning, the fire department changed policy, so rescue swimmers could be sent into the water at the discretion of the commander on scene. They very quickly had 30 volunteers scheduled to take rescue swimmer training. It's just nuts, but it did lead to them changing policy.
Well, that's good. Least. I mean, at least they had volunteers that are willing to take the freaking training. I mean, it's
immediately
a little too late, but, you know, somebody had to lose their life to do it. But I guess it's one of them deals, too. It's like it's kind of a judgment call because this guy was looking to self-harm himself. So, you know, if they would have went out there trying to get him, if they would have swam out, then there's a possibility that he could have took them out, too.
Right.
So
they didn't know what he had under that water.
Coast Guard would have been a better option because they know how to handle that type of situation.
True.
And that would have been a better solution.
Yeah, they said that the helicopter actually came right after he got up on shore.
Yeah.
So they were on their way, but you got to think he drifted to the shore too. So that's a lot of time.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's freaking California, though, man. Surely they'd have more than just one helicopter.
Well, another thing that was brought up in that case was that the highway patrol and them, a lot of the law enforcement have helicopters when they're doing police chases and things.
Well, yeah.
They have their helicopters. Why not call one of them to come in? But they did not.
Well, it boiled down to
liability.
Well, liability, and they're not trained rescue swimmers.
Very true.
So Coast Guard is.
Yep.
Coast Guard, that's what they do.
Yes, I concur.
But they've got more than one helicopter.
They had options, yes.
They had lots of options.
But according to the story, they did not. And so you're like, okay, well, that was just 2011, right? Things are so different now. Well, let's go to October of 2021. Another Jane Doe, I also will not say her name, was on a SEPTA train in Philadelphia. A stranger had started talking to her, then groping her, before proceeding to full-on rape her. And this was on a train with multiple other passengers. The whole ordeal was 40 minutes long. Now, the actual rape was only 6 to 8 minutes, but from the time he started messing with her till it was over was 40 minutes. This was all caught on surveillance video by the transit company. You can see other people on the train. You can see some of these people even raise their phones and point them towards the assault. So people are believed to have recorded or took pictures of this. But at no point did any of them call 911.
An off-duty SEPTA employee got on the train at a stop and saw what was happening, so they called for help.
Yes. So it was actually an employee that was off duty. They weren't working that day. They got on to take the train, saw what was happening, and was like, what the fuck? And so they are the ones who alerted.
Yeah.
Because SEPTA has their own security and stuff, so they just contacted their coworkers. And about 3 minutes later, the train arrived at the 69th Street Transportation Center, and a SEPTA officer got on the train in response to that call for help. He had to pull the attacker off the victim to arrest him. The DA has said that most of the bystanders probably didn't know what they were seeing, but it is also reported that the surveillance video shows the victim pushing the attacker away several times. The victim said that she had a few drinks in her after work before getting on the train, and her and the attacker got on at the same stop. She remembers him making advances on her and she pushed him off. She then blacked out and woke up on the stretcher. Surveillance shows her pass out on the seat, and then she was sexually assaulted. Her attacker said that it was consensual, but the courts say that she was clearly unconscious. Now, I haven't seen the surveillance video. They've never released it, obviously. But it sounds like it would be kind of obvious to the other passengers that something was happening to a woman that she didn't consent to if she was pushing him away from her. So I'm not sure how they wouldn't have known what they were seeing. And then they videoed it or took pictures of it. So they obviously know something was going on. The attacker was found guilty of rape of an unconscious victim and public drunkenness and got 7 to 14 years in prison. This raised the question of the bystander effect in the present day. Many believe that when bystanders are worried about their own safety or are physically not able to intervene, that they might help by going to find help or call 911. Some even say that filming attacks like this is a form of help because it helps prosecution of the crime later. But how about you go ahead and call 911? It won't hurt. This SEPTA transit system even has an app where you can report stuff. So you don't even have to call anybody. You can just literally pick up your phone and open the app. All these stories are crazy to me. And it makes you wonder if our society is desensitized, afraid, or just don't give a fuck about other people.
Yeah, I mean, if I seen any of this, I mean, I understand that, yeah, you could be putting yourself in danger.
True.
But you could also be saving somebody else's life.
100%.
So it's like, give yours, just try to help out.
Right.
Do whatever you can to help that person have a life.
Right.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I didn't even like this story.
Me neither, but it's part of true crime. Like, the bystander effect is a legit thing to a lot of people.
People need to step the fuck up is what they need to do.
Yes. Yes. If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you just, like I said, just call 911.
Yeah, don't raise your fucking phone up just to record the shit. I mean, call 911 first, you know.
I just can't get over the videoing, the taking pictures,
I mean, and a lot of people are going to speculate, oh, I did it for evidence or whatever. Okay, did you call 911?
Yeah, if they don't ever arrest the guy or the perpetrator, female or male, then what is your video going to help with?
Nothing.
There's no court case to have if you have no assault.
Exactly. You got to call for help or do something first before you get your evidence.
Yeah. No, I mean, somebody could have just went over there and sat with her. Oh, hey, like they knew her from somewhere. Oh, hey, girl, I haven't seen you in forever. Just enough to get that guy to leave her the hell alone.
Yeah.
That's all it would have took. But
I mean, they got all different types of hand signals now and everything else that shows people in distress, and
that's true too.
You know,
she didn't use any of those.
No, I know she probably didn't have a chance to, but I'm just saying. But it's just one of them deals, just like all these stories, and everybody just basically just sit there and just
did nothing.
It's like it was a free show. And
that's what's sad is why is this a show? Why is this something you want to sit around and watch?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
so
just
gross.
Like, and then they're sitting there recording it. Why are you recording it? So you can watch it again later?
Send it to their friends. Look what I saw on the train.
Look what happened. Oh, this is so fucked up.
Now, some of these stories, I believe it was when the 16-year-old was attacked. I do believe some of those photos made it to social media.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Mm-hmm. Before they got pulled down. That's so gross.
Yeah, that's not even right.
Now that we've pissed Darren off.
Well, yeah. Well, make sure you guys check out some of our other stories on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Go check us out on Podbean. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. That's it for this one. Catch us on the next one.
Bye.